So you're choosing an analogous color scheme, 3 colors that are next to each other in the color wheel. So for example, you might choose blue-green, blue, and blue-violet. Those would be an analogous color scheme. They share the common color of blue, so that would work. I'm going to choose a red, orange, and orange scheme. So that's the color scheme I'm going to be using. You might bridge it into a 4th color a little bit, but for the most part you're staying within those 3 colors. So here I've set up my palette. Yours is going to be a paper plate, but I set up my palette so that I have everything that I need ready to go. I have a little of that green because you remember that in order to create a darker shade of a color, you add the complementary color, and the complementary color of red is green. So I might use that a little bit later to get my really dark values. You'll probably hear my little dogs walking around. I apologize. So here are my color schemes. I've set it up. You can see I don't need a ton of colors. I'm only putting on my palette what I'm going to use within the immediate future, within the class period. You never want to use more than that because then you're wasting paint and you'll have to get rid of it. So I have some white for my tints, for those light areas. I have a little green for my values, and then I have a little yellow for when I'm going to make it more of that orange color for my lighter values. So the way that I do this is I'm dipping just the tip of my brush. I don't want to make it to go all the way to the metal, because then the paint gets in there and it slowly kind of comes out over time, which is really bad. So we want to get it only on the bristles of the brush. I'm fully loading my brush, and then I'm going ahead and putting that color down. Then I'm going to go over to my next color, which is this orange, and I'm putting it down next to it. This is kind of a wet on wet method, and you can see that they blend nicely. And then I'm going to get a little of my more yellowy orange, and I'm going to put it down. And I can create kind of this slow gradation from one to the next. Remember what you know about your big blue horses and about values. I can use a little of that green in my red to make my darkest, but before I do that I have some white on my brush, so that's not going to work. So I have to come over here, lightly swish my brush around to get it clean. Make sure it's super dry before you put it back in your paint. You don't want any water on your brush. And now I can mix a little green into my red to get that shade. And if you see, I'm kind of lightly pulling it into my red to blend. This is kind of a wet on wet method so that it blends nicely. You can also put 2 colors next to each other, like so. Maybe I want some red. And next to it, I want some yellow. And in order to blend those together, I need to get a clean brush that's very dry. We don't want water on our brush. And I'm kind of using an X method where I'm kind of weaving those colors together. And I'm just going in little X's along that line, kind of pulling it into the yellow and then back into the red. And you can see it kind of weaves those colors together. It blends them together on your painting or whatever it is that you're using. This is canvas. So those are two ways to go about blending on canvas, just by kind of moving gradually from one to the other, or if you have two very different colors next to each other, you can blend them together using that X method. Once you get the hang of this, you can start applying it to your sphere like we did with the oil pastels. This works very much in the same way, you just are using kind of a different medium. So I'm going to start doing that, and I'll speed it up so that you can see kind of the technique and the process throughout the whole thing. Make sure that you're not letting one color dry before you're adding the next. Otherwise it won't blend if one's dry. Okay, so there you have the sphere. I've used my analogous color scheme. I'm kind of stuck with this warmer color scheme for mine. It's just a choice that I made. You could go with cools, you could go with any analogous color scheme that you want. Make sure that you're paying attention to the shadow shapes that you see. So with the sphere, those shadow shapes are going to stay round. The highlight, midtone, and shadow is all going to stay round. For a different shape, like, hi puppies. For a different shape, like your horses, your big blue horses, of course they would be different because the shapes were different within the horses. Same thing's going to happen with your skulls. Make sure that your skulls have the shadow shapes that you see in real life and that you're not making anything up. Draw them true to life, and then paint them as you see them. Today you're just going to practice different blending techniques like I showed you here, and then creating your sphere with the analogous colors. If you finish this early, you can choose a different analogous color set to try. Maybe you like that one better and you end up going with that one. It's up to you. But if you finish this one early, masterfully, then you can move on to a different analogous color scheme.